All right, since we don't have a chair or a vice chair here, I'm going to ask for a motion from the planning commissioners that are present to appoint a temporary or an interim chair to see over this meeting.
Madam City Attorney, I would make a motion that we nominate Commissioner McCann to the chair for this meeting.
I will second that motion.
I guess we vote. It still passes. Yeah, it's still the majority. We win. All right, congratulations, Mr. Chairman. Your meeting.
I think that's Mr. Temporary Chairman. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thanks. I'd like to call this meeting to order if it hasn't been already. And let's start out with the Pledge of Allegiance. If Senior Planner Danis can lead us, that would be great. Madam Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Please let the record show that Vice Chair Donor and Chair Murphy are absent this evening. Commissioner McCann, Commissioner Opal, and Commissioner Nelson are present.
Thank you. Item number 1, approval of the minutes.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
I will second that, but request one correction. On item F, under the action, Nelson is misspelled.
I should have caught that. So that would be the motion with an amendment to correct the spelling. I would be fine with that.
Okay, let's vote. And I abstained because I wasn't there at the meeting. So does that item pass?
It does.
Great. Public comments. Anyone wishing to address the Planning Commission during the public comment section or on an agenda item is asked to complete a request to speak form available from Madam Secretary. This completed form is to be submitted to the Secretary prior to the individual being heard by the Planning Commission. Any person wishing to address the Planning Commission on a subject other than those scheduled on the agenda is requested to do so at this time. In order to conduct a timely meeting, there will be a 3-minute time limit per person and an overall time limit of 15 minutes for the public comments portion of the agenda. State law prohibits the Planning Commission from taking any action on a specific item unless it appears on the posted agenda. Do we have any speaking slips? No. Okay. Thank you. Consent calendar. There's no items on the consent calendar. Item number 2, public hearing. Coastal Development Permit CDP 17-0023 and Site Development Permit SDP 17-0043 to demolish an existing unpermitted garage structure, alterations to an existing commercial structure, and joint use of parking facilities within the coastal and floodplain overlay FP2 districts, and conditional use permits CUP 17-12-13-14 and -7 and CUP 18-17 to operate major and minor automotive uses within the community commercial vehicular CC/V zone located at 25802 and 25831 Victoria Boulevard. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, Senior Planner Dinez will give the presentation this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Good evening, Chair Pro Tem McCann, Planning Commissioners, and members of the public. My name is Belinda Dinez, Staff Planner for the proposed project at 25802 and 25831 Victoria Boulevard, which is owned and operated by Pickering Properties. This project is before you for review and approval of a coastal development permit, site development permit, and 4 conditional use permits. While there are a number of permit applications, staff has processed the project in its entirety as one master review for discretionary approval. The scope of the project has several parts, and I will provide a summary of the application. To give some background on the property itself, here's an aerial of the immediate area. The subject site is located in the Doheny Village area of Capistrano Beach on the west side of Doheny Park Road and at the west end of the cul-de-sac at Victoria Boulevard. The property is bounded by longstanding commercial and industrial uses such as a self-storage facility, construction services, materials and sales, light manufacturing, and the railroad tracks. Overall, the subject site is approximately 2.7 acres. The property is located in the community commercial / vehicular zone, the coastal overlay zone, and the FB2 floodplain district zone, and identified on the FEMA flood map as Zone AO. Immediately adjacent to the property is an area designated as Transportation Corridor District Zone along the railroad tracks. There are two separate lots on the property, 25802 Victoria, which is to the south in the orange outline, and 25831 Victoria to the north in blue. A portion of Victoria Boulevard in green is owned by the city, but operates as both storage and vehicular access under a lease agreement between the city and the applicant. The main building A, which is shown in yellow, was originally constructed as a lumber yard, office, and storage. Building B in red was ancillary lumber storage. Building C is an office structure located at 25831, shown in blue. Ultimately, the purpose of this request is to convert the property from single tenant to multiple tenant occupancy. In 1996, a coastal development permit and site development permit were approved for boat sales, storage, and repair under a single tenant, which was Dick Simon Yachts. Over the years, the property has been subleased to various businesses uses and was issued a code enforcement citation because these businesses had not obtained certificates of occupancy. In order to resolve the citation, the applicant is required to bring the property into compliance with current standards to convert the property into a multi-tenant commercial establishment. This application involves the demolition of Building B, development within the coastal and floodplain districts, joint use of parking facilities, and legalizing major automotive uses. A coastal development permit is required to demolish a structure and construct improvements within the coastal zone. In 2017, the Planning Commission upheld the director's determination that automotive uses is a prohibited use within the transportation corridor zone. 3 boat repair shops operate out of Building B without conditional use permits for each business. As you can see in this close-up of the site plan, Building B is highlighted in orange and encroaches 8 feet into the railroad right-of-way and transportation corridor zone. The teal line represents the property line where a new 6-foot-high chain-link fence will be constructed to conform to Metrolink safety standards. The applicant proposes to return with a separate application to possibly construct a new Building B in the future. A site development permit is required to demolish a structure and construct improvements within the floodplain district. The proposed improvements include interior partition walls to legalize the subdivision of suites, exterior fencing and lighting, additional parking facilities, and addition of an accessible entry ramp. Furthermore, a site development permit is required for joint use of parking facilities. Because there are 2 building sites at 25802 and 25831 Victoria, the applicant proposes to reconfigure the required parking to meet access standards. Among the commercial tenants on the site, there are 13 separate businesses. Certain uses are permitted by right, such as marine uses, including boat storage, professional and business office uses, and construction and maintenance service uses, as specified on the use analysis table on the cover page of the site plans. In order to meet the parking demand for these 13 separate businesses, a total of 46 parking spaces are required. Here's a site plan highlighting the proposed joint use of parking plan. The proposed parking stalls are shown in yellow and the path of travel to accessible parking stalls shown in blue. While only 6 parking stalls are required for the uses at 25831 Victoria, The additional 11 spaces will serve businesses operating out of Building A. The location of the spaces are less than 300 feet from those uses, and an adequate pedestrian path of travel has been identified behind the existing gate. A conditional use permit is required for minor automotive use, specifically an upholstery shop as defined by the zoning code. Pacific Coast Mobile Upholstery does fabrication and repair primarily to large boats and other marine uses. Here are the plans for Building B, including the 443 square foot office and workshop. Conditions have been applied to the repair work conducted outside for oversized boats. Staff recommends adequate screening from the street view, storage of materials, and trash within the workshop and office. There are 3 major automotive uses operating out of Building A that require conditional use permits. Dave's at the Beach previously had been approved with an administrative conditional use permit that had since expired. Dave, shown here in his workplace, conducts vintage vehicle restoration and auto body work that does not include engine repair, car mechanic services, or painting. Orange County Outboards and its owner had been operating at this site for over 20 years. This major automotive use involves engine service and repair for boats only in Suite 201. Suite 202, which is located on the 2nd floor of Building A, is used by the business as an administrative office. Lastly, Ruben Gaffoglio operates vehicle restoration and auto body work with no engine repair, car mechanic services, or painting. Here's a floor plan of Building A showing the location of each of the businesses, subject to approval of conditional use permits. Draft conditions related to best management practices, general housekeeping, storage of materials, stormwater runoff, trash, lighting are proposed. This also shows the floor plan for Building B and the 3 unpermitted garage bays to be demolished. On the 2nd floor of Building A is the office space for Orange County Outboards and the storage loft at Dave's at the Beach. Some interior remodeling is proposed to Building A. Here are the elevations for existing Building A for your reference. In order to grant a coastal development permit, the Planning Commission must make the following 7 findings of fact in support of the project. As shown on this map, the property is located in the Coastal Appeals jurisdiction as identified as potential public land trust area. The proposed project conforms to the certified LCP, and the proposed demolition and alterations meet the zoning code development standards. Public coastal access exists directly south at Doheny State Beach, and the project is considered infill development with no impacts to public recreation. For approval of the site development permit, these 4 findings must be made related to zoning code and general plan compliance, suitability of the site, and site design. And for the approval of the conditional use permits, these 3 findings must be made by the Planning Commission for approval for consistency with the general plan, that the uses will not adversely affect adjacent properties, and that the site is adequate to integrate the use with the uses in the immediate vicinity. Staff has provided justification in the draft resolution to support that all of these findings could be met. Following this approval, the applicant must obtain building permits for the demolition of Building B and tenant improvements, and obtain certificates of occupancy for all businesses on site. As such, staff recommends approval of the proposed project subject to the findings and conditions in the draft resolution. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the project and the staff report. The applicants are here as well to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Senior Planner Dinas. Does the commission have any questions for staff? Commissioner Nelson?
Good evening. How you doing? Real quickly, I'm looking at page 6 for table 2. Just wanted to make sure I understand what it says proposed. Is that really existing in the case of these buildings? They're not proposing a new
Correct.
standard. Okay. I think that was So my recollection, I have one more question, was back when the last time we saw a discussion around this site was the RV parking or RV storage. And on the plans, there's still a note that there's RV boat storage, but I assume that's being taken care of under a separate agreement, and there's no RV storage under the settlement agreement, or?
This is an active code enforcement case in which we're in a settlement agreement, and that is being addressed as a separate item.
Okay. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Opal?
Nothing additional.
Okay. I'm curious or not understanding. It sounds like there's 13 different businesses out here, and yet your presentation talked about 3 or 4 of them specifically. Are those only the ones that are operating things that aren't allowed by right?
Correct. So the other businesses are permitted by right. They are not subject to approval of a conditional use permit. Based on the current tenant roll, the only businesses subject to conditional use permit are the major and minor automotive uses.
Okay. And there's a really detailed specification on the plans here about the use and the use analysis and who's doing what. With approvals tonight, are we locking those in, or no, there'll be more flexibility over time?
And so the use analysis actually is correlated to the joint use of parking and the agreement associated with that. The proposed business types and uses that are listed on that use analysis chart are factored in to the total required parking that's being provided in that 46 parking stalls. And so you'll notice that some of those office suites are identified as vacant on the use table, and so the applicant has factored those potential uses for specific types of office use, for example. So they would be locked into that type of use, if not a type of use that would be considered at the same parking ratio as required. If, for example, a new business wants to come into that suite and the parking requirement is higher than what is being proposed today, they would need to revise their site development permit to accommodate for that request.
Okay. And then on the CUPs, so those are are they specific to those business owners? So, for example, if OC Outboards wanted to move on and find a bigger space, and someone wanted to move in that space and do that same use, would they have to get a new CUP, or would they be grandfathered under this one?
If the new tenant would abide by the current conditions of the conditional use permit, they would be able to operate under those, the approval.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all the questions I have. So with that, we'd like to open up to the public hearing, and receive any comments from the public. If I could read the speaker slip in. Mr. Todd Skenderian,
Correct.
who's the applicant and architect.
Thank you. Todd Skenderian, architect for the Pickering family. Staff's detailed introduction summarized our request for this application. Essentially, we have 4 basic requests: the CUPs, the parking lot restriping, the removal of Building B, and then the tenant improvements to buildings A and C. This evening, we have Tim and Robert Pickering with us, who are a part of the ownership. We also have the 4 CUP applicants with us: Dave McLaughlin with Dave's at the Beach, Dave Urkel with Orange County Outboards, Maurice Vannon with Pacific Coast Mobile Upholstery, and Ruben Gafoglio. We're in agreement with all of the conditions of approval, and be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this item? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and discuss the item. Does anyone have any discussion points?
Sure, I'll take, Mr. Chair, if I may. I've reviewed all the plans. I went back to my notes from the original process we went through a couple months back or last year, and I think it's great to see this thing moving in this direction with, cleaning up some historical issues as well as permitting whatever needs to be permitted and supporting our local business. I think these are key elements of our neighborhood and of the village itself. Obviously, or not obviously, but after reviewing everything, the project is consistent with our coastal zone. It follows all the requirements relative to ESHA. There is none out there. They're not making any changes to landform, so we don't have issues. I know it's in a floodplain, but they're not increasing that. In fact, for the conditions, they're fixing some of those situations. Visually, it looks great compared to some of the stuff that's there now that's going to come down. So I'm in full support of this application and would vote in favor of it tonight.
Thank you. Commissioner Opal?
I concur with Commissioner Nelson about the improved use. I really don't see any issues with it. I know it's not in a really visible area, but you have a really low landscape percentage, so I'd like to see that improved a little bit if at all possible, but that's really the only thing that I can see where anything is lacking.
Thank you. I am too in support of this project. I know that the applicant has spent significant time, dollars, and sweat and tears on this, and it appears to me that they're really, really making a strong effort to be good neighbors out there. They're vacating out of the transportation corridor, demolishing the building entirely, bringing everything up to snuff. I too noticed the lack of landscaping, and they have a few little setback issues, but all in all, I think it's a huge step forward. I'm anxious to see, they're proposing another building out there, so we'll see it at that time. But I'm in support of this, and I find that it meets the required findings of the zoning code. And I'd like to commend the applicant for all of their effort. And it's probably a tough pill to swallow to get to this point, but we appreciate it. And with that, I'd like to make a motion. Before I do, did you want to impose something about landscaping or no?
No.
Okay.
Just improved, that's all.
Okay. We'll make a mental note for the new building. Hint, hint. So with that, I make a motion that we approve coastal development permit CDP 17-23 and site development permit SDP 17-43 to demolish an existing unpermitted garage structure, alterations to an existing commercial structure, and joint use of parking facilities within the coastal and floodplain overlay FP2 districts, and conditional use permits CUP 17-12, 17-13, 17-14, and CUP 18-17 to operate major and minor automotive uses within the community commercial vehicular CCV zone located at 25802 and 25831 Victoria Boulevard.
I would second that, Chairman.
Thank you. And that item passes 3-0 with 2 absence. Congratulations and thanks again.
Thank you.
Moving on, old business. There's no old business. There's no new business. Staff reports.
I don't have anything to report this evening.
You're reporting that there's no reporting?
Correct.
Okay. H, Commissioner comments. Commissioner Opal?
I have none today.
I've missed the last couple meetings, which I'm sorry about, and so I'm glad to be back. Just wanted to mention I went to the Tall Ships, saw the Tall Ships this weekend. Another fabulous event by Dana Point, and just couldn't be happier than to live here. Had dinner Friday night with some friends that we recently bought a house in town, and we just talked about Dana Point and how we had to live in Dana Point, and it was suggested to him, well, you could look for a house in San Clemente. He said, no, Dana Point. I want to be in Dana Point. So anyway, love it here. That's it. Commissioner Nelson.
Well, we miss you, obviously, and you obviously have not lost your skills as a chairperson, so thank you for stepping in tonight. That's all I've got.
Okay. Okay, with that, we'll adjourn to the next regular meeting of the Planning Commission will be held on Monday, September 24th, beginning at 6 p.m. in the council chambers here.